Good afternoon to you, Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com, here with your off-season edition of the Hurricane Outlook and discussion for the 18th day of January 2016. Now that Hurricane Alex has dissipated, no longer on the maps, we resume the off-season version of this outlook where I take a look at different things that we watch as we get ready for the upcoming Atlantic hurricane season, the bigger puzzle pieces, if you will, that the climate gives us, the oceans and the atmosphere together, as to what we might be looking for as we wait for the Atlantic hurricane season to begin in June. And one of those, of course, would be one of those pieces, obviously sea surface temperatures, and this is the anomaly map dated for today. You can see the El Nino here in the Pacific starting to lose some of its bright red colors as it starts to fade away slowly but steadily. Notice too that the Atlantic starting to fill in with positive anomalies here, coming off Africa for several hundred miles, and then even out here in the central tropical Atlantic, all the way through the Caribbean, and then the western Atlantic as a whole, very much warmer than it should be for this time of year, and that's probably going to be the pattern as we move through the next several months, and then we will start the hurricane season more than likely with the chances of it being a pretty busy one. We'll talk more about that in detail in due time, but these different climate puzzle pieces that we have now indicate that things are headed towards more than likely a busier Atlantic season than we have seen the last several years, primarily because this feature here is more than likely going to dissipate and maybe even reverse to La Nina. And I cite this next graphic as evidence towards that fact, or at least that logical conclusion that one could make. This is the subsurface version of that other map. Very large area of cold water still evolving. Lost some of those cold anomalies in the last week or so in the eastern part of the Pacific, but the very cold pool, look at this dark blue color here. We can count the different shades, what we call the gradient, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different shades of blue, which would correspond to 1, 2, 3, 4, between 4 and 5 degrees Celsius colder than normal in the subsurface water of the tropical Pacific. And I want to animate this, actually refresh on it, because this is a GIF animation, as they call it, or a GIF, whatever you want to say. And look what's happened to this very warm anomaly right here. In the last several weeks, it has shrunk considerably, losing the heat content, and the rest of the El Nino warmth will start to dwindle as well. And here's that cold area that was expanding east that just suddenly disappeared. I don't think that's really any kind of a change back towards warmer El Nino conditions, because this area continues to grow, and the models indicate that we will resume and continue with cooling in the tropical Pacific over the next several weeks and months. And so I think that the hurricane season in the Atlantic will probably be busier than we've seen in the last few years. It just makes sense, logically speaking. If you lose the El Nino, you should have a busier hurricane season. So we'll see. Looking at actual sea surface temperatures, and this is not only important for the upcoming hurricane season, but with the winter storm season still very much in play, it's important even now. This is the 26-degree isotherm, or Celsius, the line of equal temperature, and that's roughly 79.5 degrees Fahrenheit. And you can see that Florida is surrounded by very warm water. The Gulf of Mexico, the Southeast Gulf especially, is still very warm, and a lot of this warmth and moisture more than likely added to the environment that led to the tornadic storms here in Southwest Florida as of late. And we're probably going to see this very warm Atlantic contribute to a powerful storm system that I'm going to talk about in a moment for the lower 48. Zooming in a little bit to the Gulf of Mexico, a little bit higher resolution, and you can see very, very warm water still in the Gulf. We're mid-January, and a good chunk of the Southeast Gulf is still 80 to 81 degrees Fahrenheit, with 82 degrees poking its nose up through the Yucatan Channel. Normally, the 80-degree line, or the 26-degree isotherm Celsius-wise, is like down here. But this year it's way up to the north, so it's going to take a few winter storms and very cold air kind of blasting south and east, what we call cold air advection, to really knock this down, and I don't see that coming too much in the near future. Yeah, it's going to be cold farther to the north. In fact, very cold these next couple of nights, but these cold fronts penetrating down into South Florida. So far, we don't have any worries for the citrus crops south of Orlando, for example, and that's going to keep this water profile very warm here. And this will eventually come into play as we do develop these storm systems, and that's where I'm going to segue into the other part of the off-season discussion, and that's lower 48 weather, where we look at potential big storms, whether they be severe storms in the spring, tornado outbreaks, that kind of thing, or big, disruptive, high-impact winter storm events. And certainly out west, we don't want to ignore the west coast. Luckily for them, the rainy and stormy weather pattern continues. From the drought perspective, that's great news. Unfortunately, it's not reaching Southern California, where it's really, really badly needed. But hey, the snowpack of the Sierra and a good deal of the Olympic Mountains up here in Washington, you can take what you can get here. The parts of the Rockies, the northwest parts of the United States, getting some much-needed snowpack to help with some of the water issues out west. But what's going to happen over the next few days? Upper level low going to move across the lower 48 and then carve out a surface low with it. Where that tracks, is it going to be inland, off the coast? It's hard to say, but the end result is kind of this map here. I wanted to show you. This is about 5 days out, and it just shows you a snapshot here of what would be a very strong coastal storm, the potential for flooding along the Jersey and Delmarva Peninsula region, the New Jersey coastline, up to parts of maybe even New York, what we call the New York Bight, up in the Sandy Hook, New Jersey area. Very strong northeast winds, a classic nor'easter taking shape. You see that comma shape with the storm system. Now, I am not a winter storm expert, and so I'm not even going to try to gather a guess as to how much snow different areas could see. The models every few hours crank out different numbers based on different data, and I think it's a good bet that if you live along the I-95 corridor, and then in the southern to central Appalachians, you're going to see some significant snow between now and, let's say, next Monday morning, a week from now. That's a pretty good bet. How much and exactly where, and then other details like how much wind and how much coastal flooding there could be remains to be seen. And so what I wanted to do, instead of trying to pretend like I know something about winter storms that I don't, I want to read you something from somebody who does. This is from the National Weather Service out of Mount Holly, New Jersey. And, you want to figure out what's going to happen with the weather from a non-biased, objective source that's not commercialized. The Weather Service is your place to go for that. It is. I don't know these people up there personally. I'm not throwing them any favors or bones here. They don't know me probably. I know a good product when I see it, when I want to get to the facts, because you're going to see people posting enormous snowfall maps, of these amounts coming, and the snow is one part of the story. You've also got the coastal flooding issue, the potential for heavy rain, and the potential for damaging wind, and maybe even blizzard conditions, and a snow map showing you the accumulation of a particular storm over an X amount of period of time isn't very helpful for trying to help you figure out what's going to happen where you live. Where you have to deal with down power lines, trees coming down because of the heavy wet snow, and the possibility of 40 to 60 mile per hour winds. What if you live along the Delaware Bay and the east coast of New Jersey there, as if there's a west coast of New Jersey, but you get the idea. The impacts go beyond, oh wow, 20 to 30 inches of snow, and I'm the first to post it on my website. Big deal. It's still several days away, and there's a lot that can happen. And so I want to read you this because this is an objective look at it from the forecast discussion, and I've picked out a couple of paragraphs here. First is this one, and I just think it's so well explained that I thought I'd read it to you as best I can here. So this is the long-term outlook from National Weather Service forecast discussion in Mount Holly, New Jersey. Now keep in mind, this isn't just for their county warning area. A lot of what they're talking about with the storm is very general with the storm as a whole. So keep that in mind as I read this to you. Some of it will be specific to New Jersey, but a lot of it will be about the storm system in its entirety. So here it is, Friday through Sunday. Through this period, a surface low and upper level trough will lift out of the southeastern U.S. towards our region. A few things to note with this event, however. Run-to-run consistency and model agreement is not very good. So that's a big clue right there. The upper level trough that will be associated with this system is still well off the west coast. It's off the west coast still. It's like trying to predict a hurricane that is still 5-6 days away. And thus hasn't been well sampled by the upper air network. What does that mean? Well, the storm system that's going to be causing this so-called blizzard or coastal storm, the upper level energy is still offshore where there are no weather balloons being launched. So once that energy comes into the lower 48 and our upper air network with what we call soundings can sample it every 12 hours and then maybe every 6 hours if they decide to do that, then there'll be a much better model sampling and input for the models to digest and hopefully crank out better agreement. And that's what the forecast discussion continues to allude to. So hopefully when this happens Tuesday night into Wednesday, we'll start to see a bit better model agreement. Also complicating the issue is that there looks to be a split flow pattern ahead of this system, which can be a challenging pattern for models to resolve. So right here, this paragraph is very just straightforward that, hey, look, there's some issues. This is no means a lock. There's a lot that can still happen. The system is still over the Pacific, and so we don't really know. Just going to have to wait and see as the days go by. Everybody wants to know what the weather's going to be like 4 or 5 days from now, and sometimes it's just too hard to tell. And then you have the coastal aspect of it, and I thought this was important because there's going to be a lot of emphasis placed on the heavy snow, rightfully so, but I don't want that to be at the expense of the possibility of coastal issues here, and therefore I bring that up here. Tides, coastal flooding, water levels with low tide cycles on Monday night and Tuesday could get close to low water advisory levels on the Atlantic coast and the Delaware Bay because they have offshore wind right now from that cold air advection coming from this storm system that just moved through. At this point, guidance shows that water levels should remain just above low water advisory criteria, etc. But then down here, this next paragraph, this is where it talks about the upcoming storm. And again, this is where I don't want it to be lost in the shuffle. All the talk about snow. Next Saturday, potential exists for coastal flooding. We only need a 1.5-foot storm surge near the time of Saturday morning high tide along the New Jersey and Delaware Atlantic coasts, and that would cause them some problems. At this time, we can see anywhere from a 1.5-foot to 3-foot storm surge at the time of high tide. That will mean a minor to moderate, right there, coastal flood event. Some scenarios paint worse, but the more common solution favors minor or moderate flooding. So again, this is at weather.gov. You simply go to their website, weather.gov, put in your zip code or just click anywhere on the map. I'm down here in Wilmington, North Carolina, for example, and you can find the forecast discussion at the bottom of the forecast page here, where it has all of your sort of point-and-click weather for the next several days, if you will. And there it is, right there, the forecast discussion, and you can scroll through that, and it helps you to better understand the thinking behind what's going on without any ratings issues. Oh, we got to get people to click on our website and watch our TV network because we're going to have the greatest snow maps ever. None of that has to be incorporated into this because it is what it is. And that's what I like about it. That's what you call objective. And it's not even reporting. It's just objective analysis of the current situation and the forecast to come. So I'm going to do another video blog tomorrow and then again on Wednesday, because this is an important storm. It could end up being quite a big one with a big impact across a large geographic area affecting millions of people. So I think it's worthy to continue to talk about. And I might be able to get out at it some with some of the equipment that we use for hurricanes to test some things, to report on what's going on in a winter storm environment. So stay tuned for that as well. Exciting times ahead for sure, but they could be dangerous times as well, so we don't want to have that lost either. A blizzard is a dangerous weather event just like a hurricane is, and you have to take it seriously and understand all the facts. All right? Well, that's it from me for today. Have a good rest of your Monday. Thanks as always for tuning in. I am Mark Sudduth for HurricaneTrack.com, and I'll be back tomorrow afternoon with another look at what's coming up with this potential storm at that point in time.